Hey, this is Christian Buckley with another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm here with Matt. Good morning.
Hey, Christian, how's it going, man?
It's going great. And I see that also. I appreciate the toys and things that you have on the back shelf back there. Maybe why don't you introduce yourself, where you are, what you are, who you are, why you are, and then maybe you could showcase a few of your things on the back shelf.
Sure. So my name is Matt Wade, Microsoft MVP, of course, to be on this esteemed show. Office 365 is what my, or Office Apps and Services, I think it's what it's called now.
Correct.
Is my my area on that. But these days I spend a lot of time on AI and chatbots, as well as Office 365. So I'm very much a jack of many trades, becoming expert in a few things, but I know a lot about a lot of different things in the Microsoft stack.
You were one of the first people talking about the bots around Teams. And so you were writing about it and building some things for it. And I'd say that you're probably well known in that space, or as known in this space for that work. So
yeah, so I generally speak at conferences on those topics. I think it's one of those things where it's just, I realize that the concept of a chatbot has been around for so long. I mean, back in my days of, middle school and AI or AOL Instant Messenger, AIM, for those of you that remember it, we had a couple different chatbots you could use, but nobody's really making them on a, wide basis. So that's a topic that it's still so new that it's really easy to, submit basic or, introductory information architecture for chatbots in the Azure Stack kind of, sessions. So
well, I would argue that everybody's has made them, but what's happening now is it's moving to the hands of the power user. It's becoming easier for others to go and build those kinds of solutions.
I would absolutely agree. And I'm not a developer, so, having something that's no code is a good thing for me, but the fact that you have Azure being that huge cloud computer out there that you can take advantage of their natural language processing and some of their knowledge-based tools, those types of things are pretty cool to put in place. And they're just so easy for the lines of business to own nowadays. Like, you really want to do it, you can run a number of different bots and teams. The IT team can be the one that builds the Azure bot, or, if they want to do any sort of logic or complex type of, logic in the background, they can be doing that. And then the local lines of business can be owning things like knowledge bases, whatever phrasing is appropriate for the natural language processing, things like that. And then day to day, I'm working on a product called the AtBot. So we do the no code chatbot for Microsoft Teams, but also we actually just included support for SMS, for Alexa. So you can see I'm playing with some Echo equipment over here recently to show that off. We're seeing a lot of success there with hospitality and actually like senior living centers and healthcare, believe it or not, because people can just kind of say, I want XYZ, and that can go in for a central request system, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a huge category. I think between, anything, HR related, but healthcare within an organization as well. Matt, why don't you talk about AtBot, what you've done on that side? Because besides just allowing you to kind of, pimp your wares on here, but I mean, it is, I think, a great study in kind of the maturing of these types of solutions to what you guys are doing.
So we've basically married a bunch of different services within the Azure or Microsoft 365 realm, and we're taking the cog services of Lewis, which is basically the natural language processing tool that you would say, I want to take tomorrow off, means request a day off and it's going to be vacation. Versus I'm calling in sick is I want to take a day off, but it's a sick time, right? Being able to decipher that, and that is really, really easy to use. Connecting that to a logic tool in the background that's not coding. So if you want to go off and build a bot right now in Azure, you're going to be using Node or C#. And other than the names, that's as much as I know about those things. So what we did was we plugged them into Microsoft Flow. So we now have a Flow connector, or we have for a couple of years now at this point, where you can use a trigger, which would be connected to Lewis, or you can use a keyword if you want to, and roll that logic through, and that's where the conversation comes in. Our connector has a number of different actions, so it could ask for feedback, it could send a reply. We are 100% natively connected to adaptive cards, which is becoming super popular as of the last year or so. So being able to get sort of a nice, beautiful graphical experience as opposed to just that text back and forth, which can get a little bit overwhelming for people. And then we can also, if the organization wants to, they can jump into logic apps instead of Flow, if they happen to want to use a different payment process or want to have some different connectors. And the big win is that it's just all scalable. So we provide an entire dashboard, essentially, an admin portal that basically reveals all the information about the bot in Azure for that person without having to give them Azure access. So one of the big things right now is if you want to build a bot, you have to have Azure portal access. You have to have some experience in what that means. I know about as much about the Azure portal as I need to know to build a bot and make a bot registration. And then I just bring it right into AtBot, and great. Now I can connect all my flows, run the flows in the background automatically, connect to Lewis. And then the knowledge base aspect is also coming from cognitive services. So that's Q&A Maker. And you know, I think we've been on the forefront actually of some of the best practice and usability aspects of what Q&A Maker is, how to deal with some change management tools, because there's not really anything built in yet. So having some, you know, it's as simple as building a spreadsheet and having a change log kind of thing. They just rolled out active learning, so it can actually try to help the owner of the KB update it based on what the input is that's coming. And then I think even more important is their multi-turn feature. So the fact that you can have a clarification question come up if you say something like, what's the Wi-Fi password? And it comes up and says, did you mean the guest password or the employee password, right? Because you can't do that in a one-off KB back and forth. That's something you would have to have built in logically from scratch, which now is built in to Q&A Maker. And we pull all that stuff through AtBot. So you can scale it because with our plan, you can actually go forward and make as many bots as you want. We don't charge you based on the bot. It's either internally, it's user-based, licensed exactly the way O365 is, or on the outside, if you're going to use it for like a web app or for a mobile app, for a website, for Alexa, whatever, that's going to be by consumption. And it's just a really powerful way to pull that stuff out. And once you see success, you can basically copy paste it and make it for, you know, customer service saw real success. Great. Maybe the IT team internally wants to use that to try to minimize the number of tickets they're getting. So a lot of real cool opportunities there.
You know, for something like this, you know, again, it can be very overwhelming for somebody new coming in there. I don't know what out on your site, if you have like different, you know, some customer evidence that's out there of how different clients are using it, what they've done, what they've gone and built.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe if you have some stories that you can share of what some real customers are doing with the solution. Again, I'm not trying. This isn't some kind of a big switch for
no.
watching or listening of that. We're talking about Matt's company. No, it's because I think it's always you've got to be careful for those, you know, for us, the MVPs, for tech evangelists, to get so much down in the weeds and forget that sometimes you have to use very practical speech and descriptions and stories around, hey, these are practical applications of the technology. Here's how people are actually going and using this and deploying it, so that people get a clearer picture of what's possible and where some of the you know, the limitations are of the technology as well.
Right. So the big thing for us we're seeing is a lot of IT teams are interested, because generally they're going to conferences like you and I would speak at and say, oh, that's a really cool technology. Let me try that out. And then they say, ooh, we could totally make this as part of the customer service or IT tech support process. And you can actually not just have knowledge bases answering questions, but also have whatever the SOP, the standard operating procedure you have for, let's say, the top 10, 15, 20, 25 tickets that you have come through. You can run the bot through those things, which of course, first question for every single one is going to be to just try to reboot it, right? So you could do that kind of thing, say, okay, did this work? Did this work? And along the way, you can even check you can analyze how people are feeling. And if they're using negative words or saying something like, I can't believe this is taking so long, automatically bring it to a person. And that's just one of those things that Cog Services just has built in. So I'm real big on always pushing, especially to the IT folks, because that's generally the audience I have these days, is to say, hey, this can do this. But we have a couple customers that are using it now as an onboarding tool. So instead of having to either sit at their desk stewing and not knowing the answer to a question because they don't want to look stupid, they can ask the question of the bot and they're told, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to judge you, because everybody has to ask where the coffee pot is, or how do I request, how do I get a reimbursement done, or something like that, and have that built in. Case study wise, we have a really good one with a transportation company in the Netherlands who actually has automated, and this is an internal bot. This is through Microsoft Teams. Their entire organization has upgraded to Teams from Skype for Business. And what they're doing is they've automated and digitized a fully paper-based process, which was generally the transportation, the drivers, for example, would be driving things from their ports to wherever the delivery spots were. They'd have to fill out paperwork along the way. And sometimes those papers would go missing. Everything would have to be, accounted for at the end of the day. Well, what they do now is they included a custom QR code in every one of their forms. So the paper is actually still there, but the process is no longer paper-based. So what they do is they take a picture of the QR code. The QR code gets sent to the bot updates everything on the back end. And instead of going from doing basically a review of everything at the end of the day, they're doing exception-based analysis to look at notifications when something didn't come through and say, hey, how come we haven't heard from so-and-so? It's also doing some there are some potential ML options too, is that as the drivers get places, they can say, hey, I made it to here, now give me my next route. And they could either provide some preferences in which routes they want, or provide their home address that maybe they can include a route that brings them closer to home and is more efficient for everybody. So it's a lot of cool little application options there. I think I don't remember exactly how many people they were rolling it out to for this case study, but I know they said that for the one bot that they rolled out, they were saying they were saving around 2.5 FTE per year, which is, that's a big savings. That's measurable numbers.
Well, that's always the, I love companies, small product companies that have figured out to sell their products based on kind of a calculator with those kinds of cost savings. It's like, well, we used to do that with SharePoint migration software. It was basically how many, hours per week per admin are you spending doing these tasks? If we can reduce that by 25%, and over the course of the year, it was like 10x the price of our software, and that we could guarantee that kind of, that's why I think one of the clear winners in this space of value achieved is in the supply chain side of things, which is what you're talking about. I mean, I'm surprised a company like that still has paper involved at all, and they're not using tablets, devices, something in the field, or smartphones. But
no, actually, the reason was, it was a legal reason. It was because they were crossing the border into Germany, and Germany doesn't allow to be electronic. Apparently, was what.
That makes complete sense. So having that, I think you go even further with IoT devices, and but anyway, it's that's the kind of thing where exactly what the bot is able to identify, that over time, as you look back at that data and say, why are we slower on our delivery times on certain routes? And so you can start to look at other factors. Well, it could be that it's external factors, congestion in area, in a growing area where it's more traffic now than it used to be, or performance of drivers, the same driver over time, and all that kind of stuff that you can start to look at, all this data that's created because you're able to capture, in that manner. So that's
big data, big data, big data.
Yeah. Well, that's always been, it's, in the, information management, knowledge management space, which all of these things are just kind of, ancillary, components of that bigger picture. It all comes down to big data problems.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's exciting. Well, what else is going on? I mean, besides this AtBot thing.
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention too that AtBot is available for free in the Teams App Store. And if you remember a thing called TBot back in the day,
yes,
the Microsoft Teams included HelpBot. They retired him somewhat unceremoniously back after last Ignite, which we were a little sad about. But we took the opportunity. I put out a lot of everyday user sort of support and guidance and best practices etiquette for Microsoft Teams. So we actually pre-populated AtBot, the free version, with our own Q&A KB that people can ask general Microsoft Teams questions. So it's actually a good adoption mechanism, and it's general enough that it's not going to offend any local governance policy kind of thing, but it's also, it's not something you can either customize as well, but it's a good opportunity to see exactly what those Q&As can do and how much information it can support.
I think, Matt, there's an opportunity here for an ad campaign that features TBot and Clippy.
I know.
AtBot kind of, kind of bridging the
bringing them together. That's true. So let's see. Other than that, I just finished all my Ignite submissions. Hopefully, one of those will get accepted. Though I do plan on going to Microsoft Ignite in November. That'll be my third time, and it's just been, I don't know, just an eye-opening and really, really cool experience. And then let's see elsewhere. So you probably know my periodic table of O365, which is up behind me.
Yeah, you should mention that for folks that might not be aware of it because they might not have a pulse. But
that's true.
Who knows? Yeah.
So I'm an infographics guy. A lot of people know me from taking really concept topics and kind of boiling them down into reasonably understandable things for general users. And the periodic table is probably the best thing that I'm known for. So it's a way to show a whole bunch of different applications in O365. And then my colleague, or my peer, Niels Johansson out in Denmark, helped me with building it into, not helped me, he built it into a interactive web app. So actually you can filter it by license type now. We're going to be updating with some more apps soon. We'll get the new branding, all that kind of stuff coming. But there's actually also a premium version now you can subscribe to that lets you build your own. So you can start out with our templates and then kind of expand on them or change them, because the biggest piece of feedback is always the, hey, we don't use delve. I want to remove delve from the periodic table because we don't want to see it, or we don't use Yammer, or we don't use Skype. And so we saw a bit of a need there. So you can easily get to that. And right now we're doing free trial for 14 days. You can build it. The custom editor is really, really slick. Niels is a black magic genius. I'm not quite sure how he does what he does, but
well, I think you just called it out as black magic, clearly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
So something I don't know if it was, if this begat the periodic table or if it was just a different infographic, but was the one where you explained what happens when you create groups from each workload. Was that predate the periodic table, or?
No, so the periodic table, I put that together one day after work at a Starbucks, spent about a couple hours. I made a little square of each of the names of the apps, and I started organizing them in a certain way and had to take a picture every few minutes so I didn't forget which one was which. And I wanted to group them in a way that some of the other infographics out there at the time they were really good. They showed what was there, but not necessarily how they related. And I really wanted to show that like OneDrive and SharePoint are actually very similar, and here's why. And put that out there, and that, I think I put it out on like a Saturday morning on LinkedIn, which looking at my metrics these days, that was the worst time I could have ever done that. But,
for me, it's apparently Thursday morning at 3 a.m. my time is where I perform the best for some reason.
Noted. I will not reveal when I perform the best. So I released that, and it just kind of blew up over the weekend, and I was really happy. I needed it because I needed to be able to explain this stuff to some clients that I had that were doing some adoption stuff. So there was no easy way to do it. I pulled some of the other infographics, of course, with credit, and shown off, what they could do, and I'd still get the I don't get it. Right. So I put that together, and then within days, the top request was, wait, now you got to do something for groups because I don't get groups. And it turned out neither did I. I thought I understood groups, and I did not understand groups or how they worked. Even just the phrasing of it, of Office 365 groups, I kind of thought it was its own sort of app, and that's why I didn't include it at first I didn't include it at all in the periodic table, because I did decide that it wasn't an app, and I know membership service, right? But let's back away.
It didn't start out that way though. But that's kind of added to the confusion, because what it launched as and what it is today are different.
Right. And there was also an iOS app for it, so there was sort of an app experience.
I still have it on my phone. Yeah.
Wow, it doesn't auto delete?
No, it didn't. Yeah. In fact, I'll have to. I'll add the screenshot to the video. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But so people were saying you have to add groups. I'm like, it's not an app, it's a service. And I had to really do a lot of research to figure out how do these things actually interact. You do. That is impressive.
That focusing, it's like,
yeah, no, but with the dots, it was all those dots.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So yeah, I put together what I could figure as being the best representation of that, and said, here's all the workspaces you get. And that was my opportunity to tell people, especially all the IT pros out there, we have to get over the fact that you have empty containers sitting around all over the place. Because everybody's like, hey, can I make it, but it doesn't give me a planner plan? And it's like, I guess theoretically you could, but things are so intermingled now that you can't really uncouple all the fingers in the relationship anymore without breaking something unintentionally. Yeah. So I put that together, and that has been by far my second most visited infographic. So the two things are
really both good. Of those, again, it's I mean, you helped a lot of us out because we are all explaining the same things over and over and over. I mean, the third thing that I pull out the most is the inner loop, outer loop, open loop, that graphic. Right. I have my own variation of that with builds where I actually explain it. But I probably use, and then there's a fourth one, which is the kind of the service bus definition of groups as well. Mm-hmm. But those four graphics I use more than anything else in explaining kind of the ecosystem, the different pieces.
Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap up here, Matt, if people want to find out more, how do they find you? How do they find this information? Where can they get all these details?
Sure. So if you're looking up anything related to the bot stuff, we have a blog of all best practices. We generally keep things at the Azure level, though we reference AtBot all the time. I want people to be able to walk away being interested in the technology, period. So we point out how it works for AtBot, but also how it works for the rest of the stack. So we're on Medium, and you can find out, you can just look for AtBot, Google AtBot Medium, you'll get that. It's faster than giving you a URL. I'm that Matt Wade on every social platform that I'm on. So LinkedIn, Twitter. I don't generally do Facebook with work. So But anything else like that, you'll find me there. And then for the periodic table, if you're interested in doing a custom version and you want to do a free trial and get onto subscribing to the premium version, just go to jump to365.com and or go to at jump to365 on Twitter, and there'll be links there for checking out the pricing plan and how to get onto the trial. So I don't know, a lot of good stuff coming from my direction these days, and a lot of cool stuff to follow up on in the entire community.
Awesome. And when do I see you next? Are you in Seattle next week?
No, not going to be in Seattle. My next trip is to SPTechCon in Boston, and then right after that, I'm hitting a plane to Zurich, and I'm doing SharePoint Saturday Central Europe, and then I'm taking 3 days into the Alps, and I cannot wait.
Nice.
It's gonna be so fun.
Beautiful part of the world. So
yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'll see you this fall, either at Ignite or ESPC or a combination of other events. So
yeah, sounds good.
Thanks a lot for taking the time today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Christian.